Good afternoon, everyone, and once again, thank you for joining today's webinar on Unraveling Incident Management. Um, my name is Prince Huang. I am the Product Marketing Manager here at TechExcel. Accompanying me today would be Mark Mann, who will do the latter half of the presentation. He is the Regional Sales Director. TechExcel is proud to host our 2014 webcast series. We hold informative webinars on various topics once a month throughout the year, so be sure to check out our events page at techexcel.com, and you can also follow me on Twitter at ServiceWisePM. Some logistics, I do encourage all of you guys to use the question function located at the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Just type in your questions throughout the webinar, and we'll try to answer them at the end of today's discussion. We also plan to conduct a poll today. So once the poll is launched, just click your answers in the poll tab in the webinar panel. So today's webinar is being recorded. We will send out a link to the recording to all attendees after the presentation, along with the white paper on incident management. Okay, so in this webinar, we're going to cover the definition of incident management, its process, and how you can prioritize and escalate incidents. I'll also cover how other ITIL processes link to incident management and metrics that are useful in incident management. So before we begin, I'm going to do a poll now, just to quickly ask how many of you guys have a incident management process in place. And I'll give you a moment here to answer the question. Okay, great. And here are the results. Looks like the majority of everyone use some sort of incident management. And if you do use it based on ITIL standards, so at the end of the webinar, we'll kind of show you how we can use ServiceWise to implement incident management using ITIL or just process-driven in general. Okay. So what is management, or what is incident management? Incident management is a defined process for logging, recording, and resolving incidents. The aim of incident management is to basically restore the service to the customer as quickly as possible. It's often done through a workaround or some sort of temporary fix, rather than trying to find a permanent solution. So what are incidents to the users? A couple examples include maybe an error message when trying to access some application, or maybe a bug or a query preventing the user from working. At the hardware level, it can include things like a printer not printing. There are also incidents that can be of things that have not yet impacted service. These incidents usually occur without the user being aware of them. So for example, there may be a slow response on the network, a gradual decline that the user may not notice, or something that's very noticeable like a monitor flickering, which in general indicates that the monitor will not last for more than a few weeks. In either case, the fastest resolution may be just to replace the hardware at fault. So why do we use incident management? Well, there are a ton of major benefits to be gained by implementing such a process. Some of them include the certainty that incidents logged will be addressed and not forgotten. We can reduce the impact incidents may have on the business. We do have improved information on the reliability of equipment and overall better staff confidence that a process does exist to keep IT services working. And lastly, if implemented correctly, you do have the ability to interpret reports, which should help you identify incidents before they have an impact. So what happens if incident management is not used? Well, failing to implement incident management may result in your support staff being subject to constant interruption, making them less effective, or other staff members being disrupted as people ask them for advice. There's also the problem with frequent reassessment of incidents rather than referring to existing solutions in the knowledge database. So who uses incident management? So any organization that needs to understand its technical support requirements should start with implementing a service desk, closely followed by a defined incident management process. This will help channel all incidents through a single point of contact, usually the service desk, so that someone is responsible for following them through to a speedy resolution. Some key concepts of incident management include incident, problem, and in later slides we'll cover prioritization, escalation, and the incident lifecycle. So what's the difference here between an incident and problem? So an incident is often described as a fault, an error, or it simply just doesn't work. A problem is different. It can be the occurrence of the same incident many times or an incident that affects many users. A problem can exist without having immediate impact on the users, whereas incidents are usually more visible and the impact is more immediate. So problem management differs from incident management in that its main goal is the detection of the underlying causes of an incident and to provide the best resolution and prevention. So in many situations, though, the goals of problem management can be in conflict with incident management. So a good approach would be to try to restore the service as quickly as possible through incident management, but ensuring that all details are recorded so that problem management can continue once a workaround has been implemented. Okay. So incident management is really all about decreasing the number of open incidents and to resolve things quickly. Problems, though, are usually handled in a different problem management project. And an effective IT department will have 3 to 4 times more requests than incidents. Actually, requests can be also handled with incident management, but mostly you want to decrease requests with just automation. Since the incident is always related to a production process or a product that's not functioning as it once was, it's always critical to perform triage and to resolve the most serious incidents as quickly as possible, leaving the less serious ones to be resolved as time follows or allows. Incidents do not need prior approvals to be worked and resolved. They only need to be prioritized to work the most critical incidents first. And they should also be worked and resolved before time is allocated to fulfill service requests. So ITIL defines incident priority to be primarily formed out of its impact and urgency. There are definitely also other additional elements like the size, complexity, resources, etc., required for resolution. The impact of the incident is pretty much the measure of how business critical it is. So from level 1 support's point of view, sometimes it's difficult to determine. But to keep it simple, impact is usually directly proportional to a number of users influenced by the incident. Now, if you have a CMDB in place, it may be easier to determine affected users when a server is down, for example. Urgency, on the other hand, is the speed needed for resolving incident. So some incident management tools can perform automatically calculations for urgency based on the impact, SLA, and the OLA involved. Incident urgency for certain services, though, may vary in time. For example, an HR application failing during payroll calculation may definitely have a higher urgency than when it's not during payroll. A major incident is defined as an incident with extreme impact to the business or an excessive disruption of service. In this case, all key support staff members should attend to the resolution of the major incident, and the resolution is also strongly supported by the problem management team.
Excuse me, Prince?
Yes?
Are you sharing your screen?
I believe I am. Yeah, I think I am. Oh, my slides are not changing. Huh. Anyone else having the same problem? Or if you can just, okay, they are better now. Okay. I guess it looks like some of our listeners are having the issue, but it's working. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mark, for bringing that up. Okay, so a good practice is basically to define a priority matrix in advance if you haven't already done so. So the purpose of this matrix is to calculate the priority of incident based on given combinations of impact and urgency. So after you fill in the impact and urgency fields on a ticket record or on the incident itself, the priority field is automatically filled based on the values defined in this matrix. The purpose of this priority value is really to help you determine the order in which tickets are handled. And then you can assign service level responses to this. So for example, we could say low priority tickets should be responded to in 24 hours and resolved no later than 7 days, whereas a high priority incident would be needed to be responded to within 15 minutes and resolved within 2 hours. So of course, it's probably not always possible to resolve all incidents within the target time frame, but having incident management in place will definitely help improve the chances and the success rate to resolving the incidents within the target time frame. So I'm not going to go too much through in detail on this process flow. You will get this in the white paper. But the high-level activities of an incident process include incident detection and recording, initial user support by the single point of contact, which is usually the service desk. It is definitely recommended to have a self-service portal. Then another activity would include investigation and diagnosis, and of course resolution and recovery of the service. And throughout incident management, there should be some type of incident ownership and monitoring, and a lot of communication, basically. And lastly, it includes incident closure, where you may sometimes record the resolution in your knowledge base, so that can be used, in the future. Okay, so there are two types of escalations. So we have functional escalation and hierarchical escalation. So a functional escalation would be an incident being escalated to a different support group. For example, level 1 support may be in place to handle general incident troubleshooting. But when it comes to something specific like a network issue, they'll probably have to escalate it to the engineering team. So that's what we call a functional escalation. Hierarchical escalation is pretty much in place to notify management of major incidents. So it is in your best interest when you implement incident management to always include escalation. So the purpose of this escalation process will really bring these benefits: to restore the normal service operations as quickly as possible, constant communication of incident status to the affected customer, and to minimize the impact on business operations. And here's how a typical incident management escalation looks like. And then also we'll include this in the white paper, which is given after this webinar. So I touched a little bit about problem management, but incident management actually interfaces with a lot of other ITIL processes. In this case, a few of them are outlined surrounding incident right in the middle. In our next webinar, we'll probably cover change management and how incident management can interface with it. But this is just some of those processes. Okay, so going to the reports, there should probably already be reports produced by the service desk on the number of incidents logged each week. You can expand on this information to see whether your approach to incident management is effective. For example, in addition to recording the number of incidents logged, you may want to compare the number of incidents logged prior to implementing incident management. You may want to show the average length of time taken to resolve incidents before and after implementing such a process. Some of the other key reports you can run are reports against different types of incidents, running SLA reports to see the percentage of incidents handled within the agreed response time, or maybe show the percentage of incidents closed by the service desk, without the need for contacting technical support. But overall, reports are used to summarize in a non-technical language and to show where improvements could be made in the process here. So finally, I just want to touch upon some of the roles and responsibilities of incident management. Typically, there are 3 roles. We have the incident manager, who is basically in charge of the whole incident management process. They're responsible for organizing management, creating process reports, and the role is usually assigned to the service desk manager. There are, of course, your support groups, level 1 to level N, depending on how many is needed. And then, of course, there's the tech specialist group, which I kind of covered earlier. For example, database issues will always go to your database team instead of maybe to your generic level 1 support. Then there's the super users who really manage the expectations of users in terms of SLAs and the service desk in general. And they're usually used also to train and encourage end users for incident resolution. And then they're normally directly involved in the tool that you use for incident management. So without further ado, we're going to pass over the presentation over to Mark Mann. He is going to show you a little bit about ServiceWise and share with you ideas on how you can optimize incident management within ServiceWise. So Mark, I'm going to switch over to you now.
Okay.
Okay, and you should now have control.
Okay, well, hopefully everyone can see my screen. Can you see it, Prince?
I can see it. Thank you.
Okay, great. So thanks, everyone, for joining the webinar today. My part of this is, well, I should introduce myself. I'm a Regional Sales Director of East Coast for TechExcel, located in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And what I'm about to show you within the context of ServiceWise are ways you can optimize incident management. Certainly, most tools would allow some form of this, probably not as in a good a fashion as ours does. But anyway, let's take a look. First of all, whenever you're optimizing incident management, it's very important for you to make it easy to log incidents. So let me just show you what I mean by that. If we go over to the employee web portal here, and we go over to Submit New, we can see that there are a number of different incident templates. And the use of incident templates, as I said, it's important to make tickets easy to log for your end users and for your technicians as well. But one way you can do that is through the use of incident templates. If I look under Submit a Hardware Request, you can see that one way I've made this easy is through pre-population. So this is going to do 2 things. It's going to make it obviously a lot quicker of a process for your end users to log an incident or a request, and it's also going to protect the integrity of your data, because it's going to, how many times do you see when an end user might type ASDF in one of these text boxes. Here you see the incident type as a service request, and in terms of delineation, a service request, at least in the ITIL framework, might be something that isn't necessarily a break as much as something that can be handled rather quickly or in a repetitive style. So like a procurement request or password reset. So that would be a way that you would quicken or hasten the submission of an incident. The other way, or you can contrast that with submitting a regular trouble ticket, you can see that I can come in and attach files. I can enable the KnowledgeWise auto search feature that will help a customer self-service and try to resolve the incident themselves. So I'm just going to fill out a sample ticket here and say I can't access email. And I have categories and what have you that I've defined. And that brings us to a second portion of making incident management easy, and that would be the ability to classify and prioritize your incidents. So if I come back to this portal, employee web portal, again, the ability to easily categorize tickets is important. So within our product, you can utilize master detail relationships. So here, if I click on applications, that's going to drive one set of values for category detail. And these are very easy to establish classification. And I can do that by going into the admin and going to the description page, and you'll see I have category and category detail. Well, if you noticed in here, whenever I clicked on email, I don't have access through an iPhone or BlackBerry. Within our product, that's very easily updated, and I do that by, again, coming to the administrative console, double-clicking on category detail, set up, new, and I can add BlackBerry. This will re-alphabetize it, and then I can click OK. But my work isn't done because I need to handle that whole master detail relationship. So if I place the parent selection as email, then I want BlackBerry to be populated as well. Again, we're talking about classification of tickets. If I want to do anything else relative to those fields, make them mandatory, make them read-only, make them visible, editable, and so forth, I can do that from this particular configuration screen. But for now, I'm just going to push this out. And if I go back to the employee web portal and refresh my view, can't access email via BlackBerry. Now when I click on email, then you can see BlackBerry is now available for me to populate. Now Prince also mentioned about prioritizing, the ability to, for prioritization of incidents that are submitted. And I've just added a couple of fields here. By the way, these are all, or you can customize the view of your employees or your technicians. And so here I've got impact, and as Prince said, impact times urgency equals prioritization. So I'm just going to say that this is a high impact and urgent. And I'm going to say, help, my entire department can't access. And perhaps I want to associate this with a configuration item or an asset that's assigned to me, in this case BlackBerry, and I go ahead and submit the incident. So by doing so, I have at least as an employee, I believe that I've correctly classified that problem and I've correctly assigned the priority with which that ticket should be worked. Now notice we've also come back with a number of knowledge articles that may or may not assist this employee in resolving, but since incident management is all about restoring service as soon as possible, we want to give our end users the opportunity to solve the solution themselves. And if they do, then they simply can come down here and mark this incident as resolved. So again, that covers the classification and prioritization of incidents. So if we look into another area that you can optimize incident management in, and that is through customizing incident views and allowing you to search through those views faster. So I'm going to go this time to the support team portal. And I'd call your attention first off to a couple of visual cues that are available to me. And that is I have a starburst that indicates the ticket has never been opened or touched before, and also a flag indicating that there's been some kind of communication from this end user. But again, it's a good idea for your technicians to display the incident view in a way that will help them prioritize and work the tickets. And you can do that by coming up here and clicking on Settings and adding certain fields. You can see there's any number of different things that we're tracking. But if I put service level agreement start time, bring that over into my incident view, along with total remaining resolve, response, and restore time, I now have a better idea of what I need to do, you know, and how quickly I need to do it. So this particular incident, 2181, is the one that I just submitted. Notice another visual cue is because it's in an extremely urgent classification that I have bolded the text here for the incident description and also placed it in red. I also have clocks that are counting down exactly how much time I have left. Now remember, when Prince was talking about incident management, the idea is to restore service as soon as possible. So that doesn't necessarily mean resolving. That just means getting it in a workable state. That might be a workaround, and a resolution might not come until much later. But the idea around incident management is, again, restoring service as quickly as possible. And that's what we're seeing here with this particular clock. Notice that these are all in blue, indicating that I haven't violated any kind of threshold. You can see a number of others where the thresholds have been violated. So that covers customizing incident views and for your technicians. Another extremely important thing to do is to communicate the status of incidents not only to your end users but also to your employees or support team and your management, all of whom make up the stakeholders. So a way that we can do that through the employee web portal is by, in the incident list, letting people know what the current state of the ticket is. So in this case, we can see can't access this email. We can see that it's presently in level 1. Now, as it goes through the workflow, it will these current states will change. Let me show you where these states are coming from. So we have a graphical workflow editor, and these are the states that tickets can come in and reside in as they're being worked. So right now this one's in level 2. Now another thing that's important in terms of communication is notifying your end users that a ticket has been submitted. So if I go into email and very quickly go down here to this inbox, I can see that this incident number 2178, or excuse me, 2181 has been submitted successfully. So here I'm letting my end user know that we've gotten their ticket. Now how can that possibly help? Well, that will save the support team another phone call from this employee calling to check on the status, or did you get my incident? So that frees up resources to be working on higher priority tickets. So the other way that we want to stress communication is through the incident notification. And we can do that. Let me just find that real quick here. I think that's under Advanced Project. Here, incident notification. You can configure the system to let end users know and also your technicians know. So for example, I might want to say, upon submission, I want under certain conditions, and that might be as far as the priority setting is, or a particular category, or urgency, I can create a rule that will make these particular actions or trigger these particular actions. So I can, upon submission, I can let the team know that I've gotten or they've been assigned a particular incident, and I can also notify the end user, which you just saw, that has happened as well. So that's, again, a form of incident notification. You can also see that you can give your support team the ability to opt out of certain types of emails. And you can also do any number of other types of notification rules. So again, the idea in optimizing incident management is communicating long and often. Now, another way you can optimize incident management is through automating incident assignment. And we can do that by doing auto routing. So if I click on auto routing here, and again, this is in the administrative console where you configure the product, I have the ability to come in here and select the routing property. So if I want it to go on a round-robin basis, and what I mean is if I want a ticket to be assigned on a round-robin basis, I can do that by indicating workload, or maybe I want it to go to a specific person. In this case, maybe that email should be routed to our email specialist. I can say, create a rule to say if a category is on email, then I want that particular ticket to be routed to the email specialist. So that's something that I can do here, and then add owner, and then that might be a particular team or a particular person. And I can, again, rank the skill level of the various technicians. I also can base the routing on a formula to say, don't always do based on workload. Make it a combination of skill level and workload. So most of the time, let the skill weight reflect the routing, and part of the time, though, do the workload weight. So that's about the automating the routing of incidents. And again, that's important because you don't want to spend a whole lot of time manually trying to figure out who on your team should take a particular ticket if you've already have designated channels identified. Now, one of the most important things to do about optimizing incident management is working with service level agreements. So let's go back and take a look at that incident we just submitted. So I'm going to go here to this portal view, and I can go and open this particular ticket, and I can see that based on particular settings that I've made in the administrative console, I have assigned certain thresholds relative to response, restored, and resolve. And you see I've actually assigned this an urgent and high, and so this is the SLA that's been invoked. Let me pull up status. So this is a top priority because it's impacting a lot of people, or at least the employee believed it is, and it's a very urgent and time sensitive that we need to respond to that. Now, as one of my jobs as a technician is to properly or to verify that this really is a top priority incident. If it isn't, you know, maybe I would say that it's just a medium impact incident. I could do that and notice immediately how the thresholds change to different times. So this is from the support tech's view what he needs to or what thresholds that he's beholden to based on the type of incident. Now, whenever you define your workflow, you've got to decide what states is your SLA clock running against, and that would typically be an open state like in level 1 or level 2. But as you know, a lot of times there might be a state where, or a condition where you're waiting on an end user to reply or waiting on a vendor. And so it's very easy to come up here and add a state and just say, you know, waiting on vendor, okay. And whenever one of your team members is working a particular ticket, they can simply move it to this state, and that will pause the SLA clock. And then whenever, you know, they hear from that vendor, then they work again. They can transition back into a state that is tracking the SLA. So another thing that's important about your service level agreements is matching the particular tickets to your company support schedule. So in our product, you're able to do that very easily. Maybe you have a 5 days, 8 hours, and here you can, you know, put exactly what the times are, the holidays, and what have you. You also have the ability to look at the service agreement template. And if you look at this, you can see that in a top priority ticket, if you look in a top priority ticket, you're going to see that these are the times that I'm to meet in order to accommodate or be in compliance with that particular threshold, 2 hours, 3 hours, and 4 hours. And again, as I mentioned before, if this was a medium impact ticket, then I might have different response times that are available. If I look at the response time, I can also support multiple response times. Let's go back to top priority, and I can say I'm going to support multiple response times. Let's say that I'm supporting a hospital, staff. Well, an urgent ticket for them might be treated differently for general staff than it would be your surgical staff. So a lot of areas where you can modify your service agreements such to where you can optimize the incident management process. As importantly, once you set these particular service service agreements or service level agreements, you can build out escalations. So in here under incident escalation, I can say, you know what, if I'm working a particular ticket and it hasn't received any kind of action in a certain amount of time, then I can come and say, I want to send out an email, and I want to do that after 1 hour, and I want to, for 2 times, I want to send out another email. And if by any chance that doesn't wake up the support team member, then I can do a reassignment to someone else. So again, these are ways that we can ensure that things don't drop through the cracks and that we make sure that everything is going smoothly and as quickly as possible to restore services. So that sort of summarizes what I had. So perhaps we'll now go over to questions.
Hey, Mark. It's Prince.
Hello.
Hey, would you be able to show a little bit on reporting?
I can.
Great, thank you.
Let me get out of this guy. With our product, we come with over 50 canned reports out of the box relative to our incident management project. So not only the usual reports like incident list or incident distribution to see, you know, who's working on what. Let me say current owner here, you know, where you can see, you know, who is assigned particular tickets. Looks like Terry Johnson's got a line share. But also trending reports for incident, tabular reports, and so forth. But perhaps you would be interested in service agreements, reporting against your service agreements, because that's going to be much of which what your performance is going to be tied to. Here we can see that we basically have the incident type and how we're doing. You can see here that in the blue, this indicates that we're still within our response time delta, whereas down here we have other tickets that aren't faring so well with the that are indicated in red. And you can do lots of customization up here or filtering in terms of exactly what type of information you want to see. If it's against, you know, just the top priority SLA, you can do that, or, you know, any SLA that you wish to track. Another report that you might be interested in is the SLA summary report. So if I pull this up, I can see all support plans, no grouping over a time period. I can see here's some data where I show the number of incidents that are covered by the SLA, how many minutes those particular tickets were responded to, or service was restored, or a final resolution was made. And once again, you have the ability to come here and filter this information, or even come and do settings on exact information that you want to extract. Another report that's available with the service level agreement is the performance report. Now this looks a little confusing, but it's got some great information in it. And let me just sort of give you the lay of the land. Here I'm looking at those two groups. Remember I had segmented out the service level agreement for general staff versus surgical staff. And I can see within those particular or groups of SLAs how quickly or how many tickets have been responded to within an SLA or have gone outside the limits of an SLA. Same with restore time and same with resolve time. And if I go here and say no search, open, and all support plans, then we'll probably be able to see some more information. Let me scroll down here. So you can see for let me go to IT service request. We can see that 7, we're not doing so well in this particular category. 7 fell outside of the SLA, whereas in low impact incidents we only had 1 that missed a restore time. So a lot of information available within the service level agreements as with other reports as well. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mark. We do have a lot of questions coming in, so we'll try to answer most of them, but if we run out of time, we will follow up with you personally. So one of the questions was, is the user notified when you change the priority? And the answer to that is yes. You can set up email rules to be sent whenever you change a field, whenever you change statuses, or whenever you change owners. So that, yes, that is possible. Another question that we have is there any capability to survey end users automatically and randomly for their satisfaction, speed of resolution, professionalism, etc.? And the answer to that is also yes. We do have an add-on module that basically does surveys, which can be attached whenever a incident closes. And maybe that's something we can, demo to you at a later time. Lastly, we do have one more question. If a ticket is assigned to a technical support personnel who's out sick, can the system automatically reassign it? And the answer to that is yes. We can use escalation rules. Escalation rules, as you've seen from Mark, are based on time. And so if a ticket is not responded to within maybe 24 hours, it could be escalated automatically to another owner or even another status. One question that just came in is there a purchasing module? Basically, yes, there is, and it's actually part of the employee web portal where end users can do procurement. So maybe we can also put that up for discussion next time. Lastly, we have another question. Is there support for managing tickets using mobile devices? Answer to that is also yes. It's not a native app, but it is basically our web interface scaled down to a mobile device. We are working in the future here for a native iOS or Android app. Another question we have is there a customer portal showing the path to resolution? Any comments in the timeline? Can you show it to us? I think we will probably run out of time, so we probably can't show it. But yes, there is a customer portal showing the complete history, the complete path to resolution. When you're working an incident, You always have the ability to put in any comments, any timeline, and you also have the ability to chat with the end user. And again, unfortunately, we will probably run out of time before we can show this. So is there email integration to submit comments or other information? Yes. We do have an email retrieval service that you can even use to automatically pick up any emails and automatically submit them as an incident into the system. Usually we use this for requests. For example, we interface with perhaps a monitoring system where they're constantly sending out automated notifications. We basically will use the email retrieval service to pick those all up and kind of group them into one incident. So yes, there is email integration. Also, there's Outlook add-ons. Yeah, and the end user can submit attachments. We have a question about web conversation, that tab. So essentially that's the a piece I was mentioning, the chat basically, where you can communicate with an end user. So essentially the way it works is the employee, when they submit a ticket through the employee web portal, they have the ability to talk to the support team through this web conversation tab, and the support team has the ability inside their technician portal to respond to the conversation. So it's a way, it's a vehicle basically used to communicate between support, yeah, and end users. I think that's about it for now. We do have other questions that come in, but we'll answer them. We'll follow up with you through email. But thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. Again, it is recorded, so we will send out the link to you shortly along with the white paper. And thanks for joining. See you next time.